안녕하세요. 림베이지 싱가포르 남자입니다. 네, 안녕하세요 여러분들. Today here I am a beautiful autumn morning here in Istanbul Nishantasi. Take a look. People just it's my favorite neighborhood park here in Istanbul. You can see the autumn leaves turning yellow. Yeah, and today I just want to share with you guys a little bit of my experience about culture shocks. Now I've lived away from Singapore at this point of time about 20 years. Yeah, 18 years fully, 20 years on and off, and then so about 20 years. So a lot of people, when you live overseas, you hear them talk about culture shock. Like it's a big thing, like wow, you need to go through this culture shock phase where a lot of craziest things will happen, where you'll feel out of place, where you feel miserable. But that was not how I felt. Even, over the past 20 years, I've lived in 6 major cities, over 6 different countries, 5 different countries, okay? So I wasn't even just in one place, I was in culturally and linguistically extremely varied environments. But never once did I actually feel this so-called culture shock. Now, for me, okay, when I first left Singapore for extended stay, that was when I first went to China. Okay, you guys can check out this video on how I started my whole overseas Singaporean lifestyle. Now, when I first went to China, I would say that when I was first in China, there was a little bit of a culture shock. But it wasn't a negative kind of culture shock. It was a positive culture shock. Why? Because when I reached China, okay, I text my brother back in Singapore. I said, then my brother went like, oh, how's China? I went like, oh, I came to a land of freedom. Then he cannot believe it. He said, what, isn't China all authoritarian and communist? I said, yeah, but you don't get fined for crossing the street. You don't get fined for peeing on the road. And the whole place is so big. You can go anywhere you like, do whatever you like. It's so much freedom. Yeah. So that was my culture shock in China, that wow, suddenly I feel like a small little fish in a fish bowl released into the ocean. Like everything is possible, the place is huge. There's so much freedom, you can pretty much do anything. That was my culture shock in China. So it was a positive culture shock actually. Of course, linguistic differences, I have to catch up on the language, the belief, the culture. Okay, but I found it to be a very fun process to understand and discover what people of another culture, how they think, what their priorities, what their values and stuff. And after about in China, I lived like 5 years in Shanghai, 5 years in Beijing. Largely, of course, in the middle, I did move around Henan, Kunming, but mainly 5 years in Shanghai, 5 years in Beijing. After about 5 years, right, when I went to Beijing, I find that I reached a point where I stopped, like my own cultural identity got broken down to the extent where I no longer compare what I see and experience against what I am. What I am ceased to exist. Like, if you ask me today, do I feel Singaporean? Actually, honestly, I don't. I don't feel as anything anymore. Like I'm an empty vessel. Like I come here to Istanbul, I feel zero culture shock. Why? I just come here with a zero empty bowl in my heart, and I feel in everything that is local. I feel in with the local cultures, the local beliefs, the local mannerisms, the language, everything. I just feel in. I feel and adapt and integrate. And therefore, to me, there's no culture shock. Even when I first went to Korea from China, Korea and China's belief systems and everything were so vastly different. Like most people would struggle a lot to adapt to Korea after China. But for me, no. I went to Korea with an empty bowl. There is nothing that is me. I pour away the previous contents and I just go to Korea, and then I fill in the language, the culture, the everything. I adapted everything Korean, including looks, sikseupkwan, diet habits, including language, everything. I just adapt and make it my own. So right now, if people ask me, no, then what exactly are you? I always tell people I am the Asian. I am a combination of Singaporean, Chinese, Korean, and Japanese culture and language all in one. Yeah. So then when I come to Istanbul, when I first come to Istanbul, is vastly different in terms of language and culture and everything and food. And I never had a problem. Since I came here, since day one, I hit the ground running. I eat anything they eat. I start picking up their language quick. I start to understand what their mannerisms are, their beliefs, where are their boundaries very quickly. And therefore, I don't actually find myself in any form of a bad situation here at all. Everybody welcomes me. Everybody loves me. How I integrate into their culture. Yeah, so I think culture shock is not a big thing. You know, if like I know a lot of Singaporeans are very concerned about this thing called culture shock when they think about living overseas. But honestly, if you are willing to just throw away everything that you think is you, just stop defining yourself, throw away your identity, stop defining yourself. Wherever you go, experience everything fully as an empty vessel. Yep, I am the biggest empty vessel in the world. I only make noise only. Yes, I'm an empty vessel. I don't seek to prove anything in this world. This is the kind of mindset you need to really integrate and to really go around, experience varied experiences and varied cultures all around the world, and therefore better fulfill your purpose of life. If you don't know what your purpose of life is, I teach here in this video. I tell you the one and only undisputable science-based purpose of life for all human beings, of you and me. It's the same. Go check it out. Right? See you guys next time. Annyeong.